All right, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Tina Summerford, Director of Programming at 343. I work with all of you in some way. Brian Reed, head writer of Halo 5. Jeff Easterling, one of our franchise writers. Brian Goodrich, who is our cinematics director. And Frank O'Connor, who has the most tenure, as we like to say.
Thanks.
No title at all. Who is our franchise director. Yep. And then Nathan Fillion, the voice of Buck and longtime Halo fan. So super excited to dive right into it. We are all here because we fell in love with Halo and the universe and the story, or playing multiplayer and stuff with our friends. I think about someone like you who can kind of go do anything that you want to go do, but yet you choose to come back to the Halo franchise. I'd love to know the first time you played Halo, and what is it that you really love about it? What is it that keeps bringing you back? Because I know it's not the money.
I was slated for a double hernia surgery right when the first Xbox was coming out. And I said, okay, I'm going to go buy that console. I'm going to get these 3 games. That's great. And I had it all on the till. And I said, oh, throw in that Halo one. That looks all right, I guess. Really an afterthought.
I like big green robots.
Looks all right. There's a Jeep on it, I think. And I went in for the double hernia surgery, came home, and there was really nothing I could do except order sandwiches and sit on the couch, which worked out perfectly for playing some Xbox. And I played the couple. It was a driving game, a fighting game. I can't remember the third one was. And then I threw in Halo, and it was over. That's what I did till 3 o'clock in the morning every day. I was hooked. I couldn't stop. And when I was stopped by the game, I'd back it up and lower down the difficulty and then keep going. Once I made it, I'd come back and bring the difficulty back up, it was intense. It was involved. I found it incredibly challenging. I found it incredibly cool. I wanted to finish it just so I could start it again. I was hooked. I love being an ODST. Just point and shoot. None of this gray area BS.
So how do you then take that and all of a sudden get in the game? Did Halo call you? Did you call Halo?
I was public. I was very public about really enjoying Halo, and I got a call from some guys, and they said, how'd you like to come in and do a couple lines? And I said, yes, absolutely. I did that. Some of my other buddies started getting involved with Halo, and then they started kind of poaching guys from shows I've done. Gina Torres came in, Alan Tudyk, we all came in and started, all those people from Firefly started coming and doing lines. And it became like a thing. I don't know that we were expecting it, but every year when another game came around, we're like, I got the call.
Yeah. So the game is pretty much out. Most fans will have it in their hands in the next couple of hours, but what can we expect with Halo 5?
Wow. Picking up from the events of Halo 4, where at the end, Master Chief lost Cortana, his longtime friend. She was killed in the big final battle, saving Earth. And this is now a couple of years later, and he's coping with that. At the beginning of the game, we meet Fireteam Osiris, who have been dispatched to find Dr. Catherine Halsey. And she is the creator of the Spartan program, in a lot of ways sort of Master Chief's mother, because she took him as a child and turned him into the Master Chief. And she has contacted the UNSC and said bad things are happening. And we know that around the galaxy, 5 different colonies have been destroyed. We know that there's this Forerunner technology that's activating. What we don't know is why. And so Osiris are sent to round her up. And that's the very beginning. And then as we move in, we see Chief has been reunited with his childhood friends, Blue Team, the Spartans that he grew up with, that he trained with, that he worked with right until the events of Halo 1. And he's been reunited, and now they're out running missions, and we're watching Chief deal with the loss of Cortana.
So we talk about these 2 really drastically different teams, the Blue Team and the Osiris team. Explain just from a high level what the true difference is between, like, their approach to everything, I would assume.
Blue Team been together since they were 6 years old. They were all kidnapped, put into the Spartan program, rebuilt as super soldiers, and for the last 30 years have been in this war together, just non-stop. Osiris is a group of people who grew up, decided to become soldiers, became really good soldiers, and then got invited into the Spartan program later. And so it's this very different mindset of, the only thing I know is war, and hey, I want to be the best I can be. The way we figured that out really early on was Frank actually said Blue Team are classic American muscle cars, and Osiris are like hot sports cars, like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and like that just sort of made sense then. Like that's just how we approached them.
Frank, where did the idea come from a franchise perspective, that now it's time to tackle this with 2 teams, this story? Like, is Chief not enough?
I think, we're always looking to make significant changes or evolutions to the gameplay, and we were able to make levels bigger with the Xbox One. We were able to have more exploration, bigger sandbox, and all that. But the main drive came from Halo's always had a legacy of co-op, and the co-op's always had you and 3 identical clones of you all running around not enjoying a logical story, because the story's happening to 4 different people effectively at the same time. And we hired a guy called Tim Longo as our new creative director, and he'd worked on some Star Wars stuff with squad mechanics. And there were early conversations about, well, if we make it a squad-based game, we can double down on co-op, we can double down on the idea of an ensemble cast. And if we really build it properly so that it is a real ensemble cast, then we'll have something exciting that's happening in the gameplay and the story at the same time. And so it was all those things coming together, and bluntly with the technology to let us do it. So we always need more horsepower, even to tell better stories. And I think that's one of the exciting things about this being an ensemble cast is you experience a different story, at least in terms of perspective, but actually in terms of real events. Small events, depending on who you play, and then further how you play that person. So if you play a Spartan Buck and you play aggressively, you'll find out things in slightly different order, and you'll get a slightly different perspective on the action, and it will change some of the circumstances in the story.
Well, it just so happens we have Spartan Buck.
Yes.
I knew he looked familiar.
Nathan, just in general, you've been part of the franchise since what game?
Halo 2.
Halo 3.
Halo 2, I had a couple of lines.
Yes.
Right.
You were that guy.
I was a
in the
random, I was a random
we stared
soldier
at
getting
awkwardly.
beat up on by Covenant guys, and if you didn't rush in quick enough, I would die.
Tell us about Buck.
What can I say about Buck? You know what? For me, Buck has always been the experience that I want to have as a player. He seemed to be a reasonable guy. He seemed to be a kind of a go-to guy at the same time. I'm not saying he's the sharpest. He's not like he's not like I'm the man. He's a soldier, and he's there to fight, and he believes in what he's doing. He's a career soldier. But I always thought his perspective was that of me as a player. I'm gung-ho, I'm excited, but I'm also learning as I go, and I don't know what exactly I'm doing until I get there.
You were on Chief's side. Now you're with Locke. I guess even just as a fan, how did that feel more than I would even say as somebody who's doing the voiceover for it?
You know what? There's a little bit of icky. It
Yeah.
feels maybe a little bit
junky.
icky. Like maybe the Chief and I, we go way back. You know? Go back to Halo 1, I remember. I have to keep reminding myself as a player and as Buck, I'm a soldier. I have to do what I'm told to do. This has to happen in order, in the game, in order for the story to progress. But just as a character, as Buck, that's his job. This is what he's got to do, and he knows all too well. This isn't going to be popular. The Locke. Every other Spartan, every soldier, when they hear about this, they're gonna hate us. You know that, right?
That was the scene where we kind of understood the story. Like as we were doing the story break, got to that bit and writing Buck going, if we go after him, everyone's going to hate us.
Yeah.
That was instantly when I understood Osiris.
Everybody-
It was when I understood the story.
Everybody loves this guy.
He was actually talking about the fans, not the rest of the soldiers.
But I also heard that Buck wasn't originally supposed to be in 5.
What?
Well,
I'm looking, you guys are the writers, so I'm maybe I'll look at Brian for this one.
Yes, that's true. We had a different plan initially, I don't think, because it frankly didn't occur to us at the time, early on. And then those circumstances changed and created this opportunity, which was great.
So who got the axe?
Well, Thorne was supposed to be, he didn't get the axe. He actually had he'd booked a pilot that was pretty excited about, and the timing just wasn't going to work out. Yeah.
And we could have just had another actor play Thorne or rewrite another character. But when the idea for approaching Nathan came up, there's like one of those very rare easy things. Like if we're in a meeting about logos, for example, or names, like if we have to name something, just a dude's name. That guy's Mike Smith. No, it can't be Mike Smith. That's too ordinary. It's got to be like Michelangelo Smith. But that was the easiest conversation we ever had. It was, what if we got Buck?
Yeah.
Like not Nathan. What if we got Buck? and like let him live his dream of being. We decided you had a dream of being a Spartan, and it was one of those things we knew when we announced it to fans they would lose their shit, and they did. So that was exciting.
So we're familiar with how film and television works from a writer's room. You know, we see parodies and stuff on that, and some of us have been in those types of rooms. When we think about video games and sort of being this different medium, what can you tell us that's different that maybe would surprise people about how you go and you write a video game versus writing a TV show or a film? And I'll look at anybody who can provide a good answer on that one.
We still run the room very much like a TV writer's room. It's get in, decide what the plot problem of the day is, and just start breaking it down. Figure out the big story arc, and then go scene by scene and just start figuring out what works. Where we get different from TV or movies is that, TV, you get your script done, you go, you shoot. Maybe you change some lines on the day, maybe you tweak something in editing, but your script is pretty similar to your finished product. With us, as we record our first batch of dialogue, we'll get gameplay, and boy, this chunk of gameplay isn't working, or hey, that line's not working, and then we'll rewrite things, and we will rewrite constantly up until almost before we ship. Like, I think our last session of recording was May, and we were rewriting the night before that last session, just to get it working.
It's funny that, I mean, even your example with Thorn is a great one. Sometimes we're like, well, the story's going to go in this direction. Just kidding. Like the story itself kind of evolves and changes in ways that surprise us, which is really an interesting part of the creative process because it feels far more organic than one might think.
Come a long way together. A long way yet to go. Let's make a good jump like we mean to. And handle fools like we need to.
Talking about the difference between TV and games, technology limitations and opportunities change the story all the time, because sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes because somebody comes in from off stage and says, we can have flying boats now. So if you could just have a flying boat scene happen in your story, that would be great. And you kind of have to embrace that. And that's I think that's the hardest challenge is turning the technological opportunities into story and plot opportunities. I think that the place we've been most successful with that in Halo 5, I think, is the way the ensemble works. So it's just this really great blend of acting and technology all coming together. Because games, let's be honest, have not been perfect at telling stories so far, and we keep evolving it, and that's, I think, story's always the furthest behind the curve in terms of method. I think if you make a game that's all story, you can have an advantage there. But I think if you're making a classic video game where it's mostly gameplay, telling a good story is actually really hard, and we still don't have the Citizen Kane of that yet. Like we're just in the talkies phase, I think.
Well, and in Halo 5, like the horsepower behind it has allowed us to tell some of those stories in different ways by giving more opportunities and options to the player, which is really neat. Because you're always going to have I'm just going to blast through this, I'm going to get the stories through these incredible cinematics, and there you go. But you're also going to have the players who, if they slow down a little bit, they're going to be rewarded with a different kind of experience. They're going to get dialogue they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. They're going to find some perspectives of some of this ensemble cast that you're talking about, and it's neat. That's again one of the things that kind of sets the medium apart and continues to set it apart from film and TV is that control aspect. There's not such a wall between what's happening on the screen and the viewership, essentially.
You have to also, when you're thinking about video games, redefine what story actually means. I think, for me, the tipping point in Halo, I liked fighting through the Pillar of Autumn. I thought it was fun, and it was scary, and it was exciting, but it was a very traditional video game. I'm in a spaceship, I'm shooting aliens. Yeah. When you crash that Bumblebee escape pod onto the surface of the Halo, and you literally pop out, and you're looking at the world, and I just walked up and looked at the tree for 15, 20 minutes, an awkwardly long time just watching the sun dappling through the tree. That was story. I'm on a strange world in the blackness of galactic space. This is story is happening even when nothing is happening.
I mean, that's something I know we talk about all the time in terms of how much is too much, how much is not enough, and him and I are constantly having debates about that, positive debates, but I mean.
Oh, I know the feeling.
I mean, and you got to take the first pass at everything. So it's, I'd just be curious how you kind of deal with that?
We always look at what we call the golden path, like the thing we know 100% of our players will do. And we make sure that that's where the core story you need to understand lives. And so once we've kind of got that in place, we get to start exploring. So in Halo 5, we've got a planet called Meridian, which is this glassed world. The Covenant, the bad guys from the previous Halo games, destroyed this planet during the war. And you've come, and the locals are trying to rebuild it. And that's a thing we haven't seen in the Halo games yet. It's been, we've seen things like that in the novels and the comic books and everything, but we haven't had a chance for players who only know the games to explore that space. So we got into exploring, what does it take to do that? What do you get to do when you recover a world? Now, if you just play the golden path, you come in, you know you need to go to town, you know you need to talk to A, B, C, and then you know you leave town. But if you stick around and you explore, you find out all the story. You learn about who the people are, what their relationships are, what they've got going. And that, to me, is what makes video games fun to write, is you get to go, hey, you know, when you were watching that movie and you saw that guy walk by and you're like, he was interesting, well, go talk to him. Go see what he's doing.
Well, so we're talking a little bit about the story, but now, like, how do we go make that? How do you go execute that? You write the script, you direct the cinematics, which I would love to get into a little bit right now.
Okay.
What does that mean? Take us through that process and how you work with actors, and some more difficult probably than
Right,
others.
yeah, no, he's a real pain, let's be honest. So I have the blueprint from Brian, and you know, we've beat it up on paper quite a bit. But we also do a pretty extensive previs process. And so I get a troupe of theater actors come in, and we go through the scenes and really kind of try to break them and make as many mistakes as possible, kind of on the cheap. Because once we come down to Los Angeles and shoot the actual performance capture work, the amount of things that are happening there on set with face cams and capture data and actors and studio time, the costs just kind of, they add up quickly. Performance capture, and this was your first time doing that, right? Okay, so you know, how did you enjoy that? I mean, they put all the green dots on your face and the camera.
It's remarkable that in any sort of acting experience, there's an element of distraction you have to ignore. So rather than a bunch of guys with cameras around you, it was this floating headgear you're wearing, and everybody else looks pretty goofy.
Yeah. Those suits are, I mean, they're not flattering to anybody unless you like are, you know, just have this incredible physique, and you know, I would never want to wear one. Yeah. Part of my job, I feel like, is just to get as many actors on set at the same time that are going to interact with one another, because the other thing that can happen is that you have this isolation factor where people are trying to pretend, and there's nothing for them to play off of. And so it's really important to get the players there together so that they can really kind of forget about the environment and the strangeness of this space and have an authentic, truthful experience.
You know what I did to create the Spartans, all in the name of the greater good.
Doctor, you don't have time.
Spartan Buck, please, bring John home to me.
So how was the experience on 5? How with those particular actors? And
It was great, but you know, we talked about ensemble, and ensemble means more people. And on 4, it was really like Chief, Cortana. Sometimes there was an extra 2 or 3 people there. Every single scene was 5, 6, 7, 8 people on 5. So yeah, there was a lot more people in the volume, the capture volume.
How do you feel when you see your performance rendered like that? Are you seeing you? Or are you seeing a CG object? Are you remembering the day when you see that?
You know what was great was they had those wonderful television monitors around that we could look in, and you're seeing yourself in a giant armored, you know, outfit as you move. So you can kind of say, oh, you know what, I don't feel quite so ridiculous now. I can see how this could look really, actually, I'm looking pretty good in this. So it allows you to suspend the disbelief and really kind of sink into it a little bit and say, this is going to look really neat. However, once it is rendered, once I saw the trailer.
Right, yeah.
Wow, that was pretty spectacular.
Cool.
It had some sort of filter on it that made him, so let's just make him look a little extra handsome. Perfect. Enter. Buck, you buying the first drink when we're done?
You ask, you buy. Fire Team Osiris, the light is green.
I'm curious, as we make our way through the story in the campaign mode, is there like a little nugget of something? I don't want to spoil anything for the people that haven't played it, but is there a certain mission or something that you guys are especially proud of, or an introduction of a new character that you think, you know, you should really should really play through to this moment or see how this unfolds, or this is the beginning of something else? I'm looking at you, Brian,
Oh,
because you wrote it,
it's
but
all
if anybody else?
it's all the beginning of something else. I mean, like
Yeah.
this is, for me, the biggest success we've got with this is all of the new people we got to bring to Halo. The Fireteam Osiris. For gamers, Blue Team is new. For people who've been fans of the novels, like this is great. They get to see them in person now, and branching out the universe, making it bigger than just Chief and Cortana. Which, for fans of the novels, they know we've got this big universe full of adventure. Giving that to the gamers now, to me, is my favorite part of it. And the very last scene is pretty good.
All right, we'll definitely
I think
follow
actually some of the things that I'm looking forward to, I mean, not just experiencing myself finally like on my own couch. There's some neat non-combat areas. There's some neat, kind of, hub space type environments where if you look hard enough, there's some particularly interesting kind of dialogue being said. And
What's really cool with all of our levels, like across the game, is if you aren't just blasting through them, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of there's conversations that the Spartans have between each other that you kind of learn more about who they are as people and what's going on. And that was really fun to build in. It's like encourage you to go explore.
and grunts say the darndest things.
And grunts are magical. One of our writers on the game team, Nick Artizone, has done an amazing job. There's a moment where we visit Sanghelios in the game, and there's a place there where if you wander around, you will find a grunt and an elite sitting together on a cliff watching the
One of
sunset.
my favorite parts of the entire game.
And the grunt is just talking, and they're like an old married couple where the elite is just going, uh-huh. And the grunt is blah 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 blah, and it just goes. We timed it out. It's a long time.
You gotta quit talking in Sangheili, okay? You gotta talk human. I don't understand Sangheili. All I hear is bark, bark, bark.
Out there, some audience member is now saying, well, we got that instead of X feature that you particularly wanted because you did that stupid story.
That's true too.
Which is not a
That wasn't confirmed until now.
For somebody that's just getting into the franchise, what's the best way? Do you go back to the first game and do you play through the campaign? Like, how do you introduce new people? Can you jump into 5 and understand really what's happening?
Yeah, and a big thing for me with 5 was I wanted it to be a complete experience all on its own. Like, there's obviously history that you're not privy to, but you can understand the story that 5 is telling you. If you've read the novels and you know who Blue Team are, there's stuff there to reward you for that investment. If you didn't even know there were Halo novels until you were watching this video, this story still makes sense. It still is a solid piece.
Well, I guess that brings me to, do you know how this story is going to end?
Sorta.
More than you'd think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brian early had talked about how you don't really know how the story is going to turn out because so many things change and it's always moving and shifting. But something happens at the end of Halo 5 that fundamentally and radically shifts the Halo universe. It's I would call it kind of a fictional singularity of sorts. That means that the next game can't be exactly like the last games because of the way the state of the universe has changed.
Com check.
Comms working fine, Lab.
Copy that, Tanaka. Spartan Buck online and ready.
Spartan Vale online.
Before we wrap it up, I just wanted to ask each of you, as writers, who your favorite character to write for is. You cannot choose your own character, even though you're not a writer. I'd love you to choose one. And you can't pick Master Chief, because we all know, no one here doesn't love Chief.
That is the easy answer. Right?
That's the easy answer. But I'd love to just hear, I guess, who's the character that you love to work with?
I'm gonna pick 2. One, I really enjoyed working with Nathan, right? And you say to write for him. Well, I don't get to write for him, but I do get to see his ability to kind of change what's on the page in an interesting way, and things that I hadn't thought about that just kind of come out of his mouth, and I was like, grab that, that's awesome. And then Fred also, Travis, does an incredible job with Fred. And I really found myself enjoying working with him and really enjoying what he brought to that character.
I like, obviously the handsomest is Brian, no doubt. And I actually agree with Brian. Writing a character or creating storylines around a character that you understand better, and it's actually super helpful. It was probably the least. You used the character that Nathan had already created in ODST and that's nice. But I like, I think I like 343 Guilty Spark, which we haven't done much with outside of the first couple of games. I created a storyline for him that's in the Greg Bear novels that's really kind of reveals a weird twist about that character.
He's a tragic character.
But yeah, he's a tragic character, and he plays this sort of floating exposition fun robot for much of the game, but then turns heel and is a jerk. But I just like the idea of this, the weight of 100,000 years of sin crushing this personality down to the madness that he's in, and so I just like that. And there's a redemption arc for him, so somewhere.
All right, sort of responsible for the story of Halo 5.
My favorite is probably Tanaka. Like, I love that she's this character who's come from outside of the UNSC, and it's sort of like, in the honor of her family being killed by the Covenant, said, I'm going to go avenge them. I'm going to go become the soldier, and becomes this engineer and works her way up through the ranks and becomes a Spartan. And something about that is amazing to me. Like going, I was outside of your government. I didn't even care about you. Technically, growing up, they were the enemy for her. And for her to then step up and go, I'm joining your side. I see what you're doing. I want to help, is fascinating to me. So.
All right, Jeff.
I have kind of like two answers because it's a little bit different. As far as a singular character, I adore Halsey. Halsey is such a, as far as like, again, tragic characters, but she is worse than the apologists make her out to be, and not nearly as bad as, the ones who want to throw her under the bus also make her out to be. There's stuff that she recognizes about, how wrong, maybe morally some of her decisions were, but also, like, we wouldn't have a human race to save if she hadn't have made some of those decisions. So it's, is she a war criminal? Well, yeah. But did she save humanity? Yeah. I mean, and other than that, I actually adore the alien races. The Sangheili are just this super cool entity, and there's so much kind of gray area. I love the juxtaposition of the ones who are wanting to try to reclaim the Covenant as their own, and then the Arbiter who is like, no, give peace a chance. And I love the ancient history behind the universe. I love the Forerunners and the mystery and kind of the tragedy of the struggle within and fractures within their civilizations with the decisions that they made, and getting a little too big for themselves. So,
Nathan.
I don't write a lot of the game.
Yet.
The benefit of
She keeps moving up.
the benefit of playing another character is I can always saddle up to Buck and listen to what he's got to say. What's become apparent to me, though, in this, my takeaway from this round table is how much you guys honor, respect, and are passionate about this Halo franchise. I think newcomers to the game are going to be able to appreciate that, and I think people who are already invested in the game are going to be very, very grateful, I myself included. Thanks, you guys. It's really been great.
Thank you guys so much. Brian Reed, head writer, Jeff Easterling, franchise writer, Brian Goodrich, cinematics director, franchise director, Frank O'Connor, and Nathan Fillion, the voice of Buck. So thanks, guys.
Play the greatest games lineup in Xbox history.